invite you to sing along with me if you know these songs, and smile and clap and do it whatever you feel like doing. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, I'm gonna lay down my burdens down by the riverside. Come on, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my burdens, yeah, down by the riverside to study war no more. Yes, well I ain't gonna study war no more, study war no more, study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more, study war no more, study war no more. Come on, Nick, this is Nick, everybody. Well, I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside to study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more, study war no more, study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more, study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more.
And that is Mia Page and Nick. Hey, Nick, thanks for being with us. Nick's first time playing the piano, friends, ever. He's never played the piano before, so that's fantastic. Well, hello, salt of the earth and light of the world. We're here for a good old-fashioned truth-telling, friends, because we've all been hearing some things recently that just ain't no good for our souls. You have heard it said that to be a Christian, you got to vote like a Republican, and we're here to remind you that that just ain't so. You have heard it said that the news is fake, and we're here to be reminded that the news is good. You have heard it said, America first, but we are here to remind you that you should put first the kingdom of God. You have heard it said that you should vote to stack the court, but we're here to be reminded that what good does it do a person to gain the whole world if you lose your very soul? You have heard it said that we will win all the time, but we're here to be reminded that the meek shall inherit the earth. You have heard it said that Christians are all about the Second Amendment. But we're here to be reminded that we're about the Second Commandment, to love your neighbor as yourself. You have heard it said that we need to build the wall and close the borders, but we're here to be reminded that we're called to welcome the little children and the least of these. And you have heard it said that you should vote for a tax break for your 401k. And we are here to be reminded that where your money is, there your heart is also. And you have heard it said that we need to separate families at the border who are seeking refuge. But we're here to be reminded that that which God has brought together, no one should ever separate. And you have heard it said that you should keep your faith quiet and keep your faith out of the civic discourse. But we're here to be reminded that we're called to let our light shine before all people. So we'll invite you to stand up and join with us, at least in song, as we let our light shine.
This
sitting down, say hello to a little light around you. Say hello to somebody sitting beside you. Come on up here, Zach. There he is. Hey, my name is Doug Padgett. I'm a pastor out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm part of this little traveling band of Vote Common Do-Gooders. And like every traveling show, you always make sure that Morgantown, West Virginia is in your top 5, and so we made sure it was possible. Started in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, went into Lancaster, found ourselves down in Asheville and Greensboro, North Carolina. Are here today. We're going off to Holland, Michigan, and then we're going to take a route all the way through the Midwest, down through Texas and out into California. We're really thrilled to be here. We're excited about this. I'll tell you, as a pastor and as a Christian, my faith does not call me to be a Republican or a Democrat. My faith calls me to love my neighbor, to love my enemy, and to love God as I love myself.
Amen.
It's the conditions on the ground that call us to choose who to vote for. And the conditions on the ground for a lot of us right now are that the common good does not seem to be of interest to a whole lot of people in the Republican Party that have control of all 3 branches of federal government and majority of Congress, or majority of our state legislatures and governorships around the country. So we're traveling the country asking people of faith and conscience to flip Congress. A lot of us have felt like we've been flipping off Congress on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and we're now, on November 6th, you have a chance to actually do something about it, and we want to invite you to join us in that process. Not because you're of one religion, no religion, or another, but because you're compelled to the good news of God and the common good for all people. And that's what calls us to the kind of work that we're doing. We're not choosing to be Democrats, but we are choosing to do something about the Republicans that don't seem to be caring about the common good. That can be dicey territory in the world that we live in. That's a hard thing for a lot of people in religious communities. We've spent 50 years telling religious people to take your faith and keep it private and keep it personal and let other people have their way with our political discourse. And we're here to remind religious people that they have a voice in this society, a voice in this culture, and if they're driven by a point of values or a point of faith, that we want them to bring that out into the world, and they're equal as everybody else when it comes to that voting booth. So what you do in the voting booth, that's between you and your ballot. But who you talk to and how you talk to them and how you invite them, that's between you and your neighbor. So I want to introduce you to Zach Morton. Zach's the pastor of a church right over there. We did have a chance to meet Neil, who's the pastor of this church today. He can't be with us because he's doing a funeral and then a pet blessing after this, so his afternoon is taken up, but he's highly supportive. So if you're looking for churches around you where the pastors would say yes to this, there's one right there and there's one right there, and we're glad to be right in the middle. So this is Zach. Zach, thanks for being willing to show up and have us here today.
That was a good sermon on the Morgantown Mount.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
That was great. Okay, so so glad to have you here. Again, my name's Pastor Zach Morton, pastor of the church right there along the way. I'm excited to be here and excited to see Christians and people of faith re-engaging the conversation around how our politics and our faith are intimately connected. They're intertwined in so many ways. And the church and our communities have been so slow to pick up on that. But I think people are finally starting to resonate with the need and see the need for us to really talk about our politics in meaningful ways, not just to gloss over it. So with that aside, I get on soapbox, but that's not what I want here to do. What I want us to do is we're so glad for all the folks to stop here in Morgantown. So we want to welcome Doug and everybody here. And in order to do that, we're in Morgantown, so we need to give them a taste of Morgantown.
Yeah.
So this side is Let's Go, this side is Mountaineers. Ready?
Let's go, Mountaineers! Let's go, Mountaineers! Let's go, Mountaineers!
Okay, we're going to try another iteration of that. So this side, you're still Let's Go, and I think this will work with the syllables. This side is Love Your Neighbor. Okay? Let's go,
Love your neighbor! Let's go, love your neighbor! Let's go, love your neighbor! Let's go, love your neighbor!
All right, we'll try that at the next football game. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. It's great to be here, and I look forward to it. So glad that you all have come.
Take us home, Leah.
Oh, that was great. Am I on? Did I turn it off?
Hello? Oh, there we go. Well, keep it in the spirit of that wonderful cheering section we have. I have another song for you that I'd like to do, and basically this is about, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and if we let it, we can be affected by it. We can walk around sad and angry, and we can go home and when they say kick the cat, take it out on your friends, your husband, your dog, your cat. We don't want to do that. We want to walk around with joy. And the joy that we have is not given to us by what's going on in the world. We're not happy when things are good in the world. We can be joyous when things are falling apart around us. Because the joy that we have is not given to us by the world. We were born with it, and it was given to us by a higher power. Amen?
Amen.
All right. So it goes like this. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. I'm singing, the world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. Now, you are going to be my choir today and help me with this song. Is that all right? Yeah. All right, so I need a little clap. Ready? 1, 2, 3, let's go. This joy that I have, come on. The world didn't give it to me. Yeah, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. I'm singing, the world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. This peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Yes, Lord, this peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. I tell you that the world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. This love, yeah, this love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. No, this love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. I tell you that the world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. Tell about joy, God, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. No, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. I tell you that the world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. Thank you, give yourselves a hand. And remember, that joy and that love and that peace is always inside of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you. Hello, Morgantown.
Hello.
My name is Christy Berghoff, and I'm here all the way from Holland, Michigan. Yeah? Are you familiar with it? All right. So I've been an evangelical Republican for most of my life. I was a strong Republican. I was a staunch Republican. I was one of those knocking on doors, sticking yard signs in the grass Republicans. And I was surrounded by good people, loving people, thoughtful people, people who took care of each other, people who gave generously from their pockets to those in need in their community. But eventually I went off to college and I studied political science, and that led me to Washington, D.C., where I worked on Capitol Hill for a Republican, of course. But while I was in Washington, D.C., two things happened in my life that caused a shift. The first thing is I had an experience with my faith, and my faith moved from my head to my heart, to my stomach, to my hands, to my feet. It became not this set of theological assumptions. It became something that I was called to live into in every action of my life. So that was the first thing. The second thing that happened to me is I was no longer living in Southwest Michigan. I was no longer in Holland, Michigan. I was for the first time ever surrounded by diversity and the complexities of the issues that are oppressing people and harming people and hurting people, realities I wasn't aware of before. So those two things happened to me, and I didn't know what to do. I could no longer be a Republican. I wasn't ready to be a Democrat. I'm still not a Democrat. I'm an independent. But I ended up going to seminary. I felt compelled to go to seminary because I didn't know what to do with all these things that were stirring inside of me. Well, after seminary, my husband and I went into church planting, and we began starting churches around the country. Eventually, this led us back to Washington, D.C., and by this time we had 4 children. And I was again exposed to another whole level of brokenness within the school systems, with the kids that my kids were going to school with, their friends in the neighborhood. And eventually, our church planting journey brought us back to Holland, Michigan, which is where we are now. Well, it's really difficult to live in a place like that when your world has changed so much. So not long after we moved back to Holland, this man by the name of Donald Trump was running for president. And during his campaign, he mocked disabled people. During his campaign, he asserted that powerful men can do whatever they want to women's bodies. During his campaign, he continually made disparaging remarks about immigrants, refugees, people of color. And just recently, he brazenly mocked a woman who courageously shared her sexual assault trauma. And the good people of my hometown voted for this man. And the thing is, Jesus didn't live in a democracy, so we can't know for sure what he would do. We can't, but we can clothe ourselves in the spirit of his love and his engagement with the world and ask ourselves maybe what he would do. And I suspect he would transcend party and continually speak truth to power regardless of which partisan label our leaders are wearing. And I suspect we ought to do the same. Well, when we moved back to Michigan and were surrounded by our loving friends, my children were really confused about why these good people, these people who love Jesus, would elect this man, Donald Trump. Because their friends in Washington, D.C. had been immigrants and refugees and people of color. Because their classmates often came to school hungry despite their parents working incredibly difficult and challenging minimum wage jobs. Because our family really tries to intentionally celebrate differently abled people. And because we try to teach our boys the importance of respecting women. So they couldn't understand why these people who love Jesus were okay being under the leadership of a man like President Trump. And so I think today we find ourselves in kind of a mess. And I think we have this call to restore wholeness to the brokenness. But before we can really engage in restoring the wholeness to the brokenness, we have to name the brokenness. And there's a whole lot of finger pointing that goes on in politics. And we've all contributed to the brokenness in big ways and small ways, regardless of our party affiliation. In my country, the United States of America, we turn our backs on immigrants and refugees. In the United States of America, my country, we rip terrified children out of the arms of their mothers. In the United States of America, my country, poverty and inequality are on the rise. In the United States of America, my country, our educational systems rank near the bottom of the developed nations. In the United States of America, people have to choose bankruptcy in order to pay their medical bills. In the United States of America, our systems, our legislations, and our tax laws favor those who are already thriving and kick to the curb those who are already down. In the United States of America, my country, We throw people in prison for profit. In the United States of America, my country, racism is woven discreetly and blatantly within our systems. In the United States of America, my country, we take food away from hungry children. In the United States of America, my country, the love of money and power has rotted out the foundational moral base of democracy. We have to name those things, and this is where we are. So how can it be that this is my country? Each of us is a part of this mess. And we have to name these things because we all are in some ways complicit in these things. It's a hard, ugly business to stare at it, but if we can float it to the surface, then we'll be forced to deal with it. So we need to pay attention to the realities of the people around us, even if they're not our own realities. We need to wake up. We need to step up and take an active role in shaping the character of this country that we aspire to become. So we don't know what Jesus would do, but I do think we can allow his spirit of love and hope and life to inform all the levels of our community engagement, whether it's in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our churches, in our cities, in our nation, and around the world. And I do believe that together we can leave this world a better and brighter place if we're willing to look at it and fix it. So Vote Common Good is a movement of Republicans and Democrats and independents seeking to embody the good news of the gospel in the public square. And today we want to invite you all to join us. Thank you.
This is a song I wrote about healing and about hope and community. It's called I Hope. How could we ever come to this, you say? Our lives do not matter and justice has no face. To study war and anger burns the fabric of our state, sends a message to our neighbors that we've fallen from the fray. It's a long road to walk on, and I don't know where it ends, but I hope. And when I'm too tired to carry on, I don't know if you'll be there, but I hope. Dream on, dreamers, when the promises fade, can only leave room for the great. You don't need to look around. You will be one and the same. Yeah, I said, fight on, brothers. Oh, to kneel or to stand is a power that's placed in your hands. Yeah, yeah. And march on, sisters. You're
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Skiandret. I am a pastor, a husband, and a father. I live in California. I was born on a military base, a U.S. military base in Heidelberg, Germany. Oh. Born on a military base in Heidelberg, Germany. My family lived in the Midwest. Graduated from high school in Alabama. They moved on to New York and then to Texas. So I've been all over the United States, and I love it. I've been a follower of Jesus for a long time, and part of my story is learning to go from being grateful for the heritage I got, learning to believe in Jesus, to realizing I was also being invited to follow him. So I want to share a poem with you inspired by that second conversion, to not just believing but following. And it's inspired by Isaiah 58 and Matthew 25, and it goes like this. Lonely highways, dusty fields, flatland, Midwest humidity, my rust-colored AMC Matador barrels down the road toward justice, mercy, love. You leave home. To Jericho you roam, through fallow fields and winter trees stripped bare, skeleton branches reaching for the air, and they are waiting. Waiting for the sons and daughters of God to be revealed, waiting for the hands that will soothe and heal. And down that road, I see the Nazarene embraced as Messiah and Rabbi King. I see our desperation for substance become living abundance, loosening the chains of injustice, breaking the yoke of oppression, feeding the hungry, welcoming the weak, and we will no longer turn away from our own flesh and blood. We will be called repairers of walls and broken streets, with dwellings. Yes, the road ahead for you and for me and for us together is a road toward justice, mercy, love. Amen? All right, this is the part of the event where it's not just about what goes on up here, but we want to invite you into a little bit of a conversation. I've had the privilege the last couple of years of joining a collective called 9 Beats, a group of us from all over the United States and some of us in the UK, asking the question, what might the Beatitudes of Jesus have to say about how we live our lives, how we think about the world, and how we act in the world, and how we vote for the common good. And it started off with just conversations with people of all different races and backgrounds, looking at the Beatitudes together and exploring it. And I'd like to think you're part of this collective too, as we explore this together. I'm going to share just a quick reflection on one of the Beatitudes. And then I'm going to invite you into a bit of conversation together that I think comes out of this beat. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Shalom and salam, peace, are the most common greetings in both Jewish and Muslim cultures. In Hebrew, the word shalom suggests not only the absence of war, but the possibility of wholeness, harmony, and prosperity. Life as it should be, and the world as it was created to be. Holiday carols echo our plea and hope for peace on earth, even while violence and conflict persists between and within nations, groups, and families. Why is it so hard for us to live at peace with one another? We human beings are fragile creatures. Our desire for safety and security causes us to gravitate towards those who are most like us. We tend to look for a sense of self by identifying with a particular group. My family, my country, my ethnicity, religion, or culture. We divide the world according to people who are like us, like what we like, or believe what we believe, and those who don't. We get into a mentality of us versus them with so much defensive energy. I want you to consider this question with me for a moment. Who do you tend to place on the other side of us and them? What groups or kinds of people have you made into the other? I'll tell you, I think about this. Some small examples, like I drink my coffee black, and sometimes I'm a little bit, the them is the people who put cream and sugar in it. I want to taste the real thing. Or people who think like me theologically, or people who like the same style that I like, or people who live like I do in a city versus people who live in the suburbs or the country. Somehow I figure out a way of putting myself on the other side. How about you? I'm going to ask this question again, and then I'm going to invite you to turn for about 3 minutes to one or two other people. Introduce yourself, and you tell them what comes up for you when you think about this question. So here's the question. Who do you tend to place on the other side of us and them? What are the groups or kinds of people that you've made into the other? Talk amongst yourselves. I hate to break up a good conversation, but let's talk all together a little bit here. Peacemaking is hard because the differences are real. And when we encounter difference, the easiest thing to do is to caricature the other person's perspective, withdraw from them, or simply keep pushing our own views, talking over them, right? So how do we keep our differences from becoming toxic? In this beatitude, we're invited to give up the need to win and the need to be right, to step out of our echo chambers. It takes tenacity to stay engaged across difference, to focus on commonalities, to be humble and curious, to listen, seeking to understand another person's experience, perspective, and animating desires and fears. Where there is conflict, somebody has to go first, having the courage to initiate contact and seek reconciliation. The deeper reality is that we're all sons and daughters of one divine parent. We belong to one another. We're all part of one whole, members of one human family. There are no sides. Those of us who understand this naturally become peacemakers. So I'm going to invite you, you've been sitting for a while, I'm going to invite you to stand up for a second. And I want you to stretch out your arms and link your fingers together as a symbol of the invitation to live in peace. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." So today, let's listen. Let's reach past difference, embrace one another as family, and walk in the way of peacemaking. I'm going to invite you to do one other thing, and that is we practiced there, now let's do it. I want you to look around the space here, and I want you to find somebody to reach past to connect with. And you can do it with a handshake, with a wave if you don't feel comfortable touching, or if you're real brave, say, "Can I give you a hug?" And to symbolize that we're all part of one family together.
Who wants a hug?
Oh, I just Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, ma'am. Wonderful, wonderful.
Danielle?
Yes, how are you?
Good, I'm Jan. I met you before at Kathy and Roger's house.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Great. How about you?
Wonderful.
Hey,
Nice to meet you. Come on, precious. All right. Where's your brother?
As you all continue to fellowship, I'm just going to sing a little song. Keep talking to your neighbor. What a beautiful spirit we have right now. Continue to fellowship with each other. Yes. There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place. And I know that it's the spirit of the Lord. There are sweet, sweet expressions on each face. And I know that it's the presence of the Lord. Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, filling us with your love. And for these blessings, we lift our hearts and pray. And we know for sure that we have been revived when we leave this place. There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place, in this place. And I know that it's the spirit of the Lord. There are sweet, sweet expressions on each face, on each face. And I know that it's the presence of the Lord. Yes, sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, filling us with your love, yeah. And for these blessings, we lift our hearts and pray. And 'cause we know for sure that we have been revived. We know for sure that we have been revived. We know for sure that we have been revived when we leave this place. Yeah. Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, filling us with your love. And for these blessings, we lift our hearts and pray. Because we know for sure that we have been revived. We know for sure that we have been revived. We know for sure that we have been revived. When we leave this place, give yourselves a hand for that beautiful fellowship. That's just spreading love. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Mia. Hey, have a seat for a second. I'd like to introduce you to a couple of other people. You know, our little tour around this country, this little Vote Common Good band that we put together, we were fueled by four things: faith in one another, faith in this country. For a lot of us, the faith of Jesus drives us. We are fueled by hope, because we hope that tomorrow will be something that fulfills the promise in a way that today and yesterday didn't, and we're living for a hope for tomorrow. We are fueled by love one another, the love of our country, and the love of each other. Faith, hope, and love, the three things that are going to remain, they are what drive us. And then there's a fourth thing that drives us. You know what that is? Diesel. Diesel drives us. It drives that bus. Diesel drives that truck. Diesel drives that RV. And we'd love for it to drive you too. So if you want to drive with us, if you want to caravan with us, You can do that just like Jane and Greg did over here. They came with us from Bethlehem, like a couple of recruits that have come whipping up with us and coming along. We'd love to take you. We're heading off to northern Michigan where the weather's going to be cool tomorrow, so we'd love to take you. And if you can't come with us, if you can't jump in the RV, if you can't fire up your own vehicle and come along with us, we'd love to stay in touch with you. And one of the ways to do that is if you take your phone out of your pocket right now and text the word good to the phone number that I'm about to tell you, that'll get us into a little text relationship, a little late night friendship. When you're sitting around feeling a little hopeless, your friends from Vote Common Good will pop up in your phone and connect with you. So the phone number is 239-360-4663. It's right there on the top of that bus. 239-360-4663. Now, if you type the word good and send the word good to that, that'll start into a whole little back and forth. We're going to ask your name. We're going to ask your email. We're going to ask your zip code. Not just because we're going to come knocking at your door, but because somebody might come knocking at your door, and we want you to know the other people in your neighborhood that can connect with you. So one of the things that our system allows that to do is for you to meet other people that are around the area. So it's a way for not only you to stay in touch with us and us with you, but a way for you to get connected with your neighbors. Because while we're busy here today going around knocking on heaven's door, there are people that have to go around knocking on their neighbor's door to ask them to come out and vote. And if you have ever considered offering yourself up to be a candidate, that's a really risky thing. I've done it and lost. Rob, who travels with us, did it, just ran as a Republican in Arkansas. He wanted to be a Republican that wanted to help dislodge control of Congress from the Republicans' hands. But he's doing what he can. He lost because half the people who run for Congress, half the people that run for the state House of Delegates, half the people that run for the state legislature, they lose. It's a really scary thing to put yourself out there and be a loser. We happen to think that everybody is the light of the world and the salt of the earth. And David McKinley has run for Congress in this district, and he won, and I bet he's a fine man. I've never met him before. I don't know. I know for sure that he's the light of God because everybody's the light of the world, and the light of God shines inside of him. I just hope he can be freed up from the job that he's been doing and be freed up to go shine his light to do something else. And that Kendra Forshey, I was so worried about the she and not the she, can shine her light as a member of Congress, because this is not about who's a good person, who's a bad person. This is about the common good and who's going to represent it. And it is a really gutsy thing. And Kendra, thank you for being willing to run for Congress. It is a gutsy thing. And it means a lot to all of us that you're willing to put yourself out there and say to people, I'm willing to be your representative. In this country, we don't vote on our laws. In this country, we vote for people that make the laws. So if you're not happy with the laws, you can't hashtag your way into new laws. You have to elect the kinds of people who are going to create those new laws. And I happen to think that Kendra might be one of those sorts of people that would care about the common good. So would you come and tell the truth to these friends about how it is that you think it's important for the common good?
Thank you. So I'll start the way I always start because it gives me a real thrill to be able to say that I'm Kendra Forshey and I'm the Democratic nominee for Congress in the West Virginia 1st District. The reason why that gives me a thrill to say that is because it never occurred to me that I would be able to say that because I never thought I'd run for office. This was not the plan. This was not something that I thought I would do in my life. I thought I would be a law professor, which is what I do by day, and a mom, which I do 24 hours a day. My daughter Tessa is here. My husband Josh is here. And I knew that I'd be a spouse. I knew that I would be a working parent. I know I'm not independently wealthy. And all of those things I thought were not things that you could be and run for office. I thought you had to be rich. I thought you had to be able to, campaign full time. I thought you couldn't really have kids who were young and in school because that takes up a lot of time. And we moms know that, those pressures are important to our families. So when I started thinking about running for office, which came about as a result of my desire to make real change, because I realized that not enough people like me were considering running for office. Not enough people who, didn't have it in their heads think I can do this. So I talked to my husband quite a bit, and he heard over and over again the same refrain, which was, I can't possibly do this. We have small kids, we have, I have a job I can't quit, we have responsibilities. It just doesn't work for us. And at some point, my very delightful, long-suffering husband stopped me, and he said, "Do you mean to tell me that you think it's a bad thing for our children to see their mother run for Congress?" And that stopped me in my tracks, because that's exactly what I've been thinking. I thought it was a bad thing to do that. And he said, "It's the right thing to do. It's what we need you to do. It's what your kids need you to do. It's what your community needs you to do. It's what West Virginia needs you to do. You should do it." And while he's very convincing, I wasn't quite there yet. I was close. But about a week after that, I was in the backyard mowing my lawn. I tell the story, it's West Virginia, so I was like this. Side of a hill, it's hot, I'm sweating, it's kind of a day like today. And I was in a bad mood. I was feeling real sorry for myself. Gotta mow the lawn and gotta do stuff for the kids and gotta get to work and all of these things, and thinking, how in the world could I possibly add a congressional run to everything that's on my mind right now? And then in a moment, in this sort of flash, it came to me, moms do hard things. And that's when I decided I would run. It was in that moment that I knew that this was what I needed to do, even if it would be really hard. And that was, a year ago, September 21st, 2017, I announced. Everybody said the same things. The newspapers all said the same things. She's a good candidate. She's got a good message. She can't win. Can't win the primary. She's not got enough money. Her opponent has tons of money, and it's true. He did. But that was okay. We ran a grassroots campaign. We just kept doing what we were doing. But all the newspaper articles kept saying that. She can't win. She can't win. I won by 9 points. I was the biggest money upset in the country. I was outraised 10-1. I was outspent 6-1. And that means that there's something bigger happening than me. This is a bigger, we see bigger problems than we've seen before. We see more need than we've seen before. We see people paying attention more than they have in a long time. And when they pay attention, what they say they want is someone to represent them who will serve this district and not just take from it. So what I do on the campaign trail is I talk about my values, because I think we Democrats need to do more of that. What we do is we tell everyone very specifically what policies we want to implement and how they'll work and how they'll be better for people. But the truth is, people don't vote their self-interest. They vote their values. They vote for people they think share their values. And so my job is to make sure that the voters know who I am and what I believe. And here are the things I believe in. I believe in care and fairness and liberty, sanctity, authority, and loyalty. I believe in a lot of other things, but those are 6 moral intuitions that people share. And so I focus my campaign on those moral intuitions so that you all can know where I'm coming from. Fairness is about how much money people make when they work full-time. It can't be that we live in a country where you work full-time and you still need government assistance to feed your family. Some people have to work more than one job and they still need SNAP. They still need food stamps to feed their family. That's not fair. We need to be paying people better so that they can live a full life and feel like they're contributing as they are to society and not feel like they're required to take from the government just to survive. Care. We need to take care of each other, we need to take care of our seniors, and we need to take care of our health. In West Virginia, people are struggling with their health. We have a drug addiction crisis that's killing more West Virginians than any other state in the country. We have people who can't get to the doctor, even though they're very ill, and they just say, "Don't worry about me, I don't want to burden you." That means, let me go, because it'll be too expensive for you to take care of me. That's not right. So I believe in universal health care. I believe in freedom. You might have heard me say 100,000 times, for those of you who heard me speak before, I want to fight for your freedom to stay in West Virginia. This is a freedom issue. If you can't choose to stay in West Virginia because you can't afford to live here, because you can't make enough money, like our teachers recently encountered, then you're not living free. Sanctity. We live in this beautiful state that is, if people knew about it, they would come from all over to see how beautiful our mountains are and how amazing our rivers are. That is incredibly important to us. We believe in the sanctity of these mountains. We need to take care of them. Authority. We need to stand up and show the rest of the world who we are as West Virginians. We are an authority on a lot of hard things, and our teachers showed us and the country what it means to stand up for what you believe in. And they actually sparked movements around the United States. People in teachers in other states who got out and picketed and said, I need a raise too because I can't afford to feed my family while serving this community. And they had signs that said, don't make me go all West Virginia on you, right? West Virginia teachers led that charge, and it was so admirable, and that was them showing their authority on this subject of how hard it is to live in West Virginia on what they were getting paid, and we need to fix their health care. And then the last, loyalty. Loyalty in West Virginia is very, very important. It's important everywhere, but it's particularly important here. And we see that through how we feel about the people who served in very hard jobs in the coal mines for so long. We are loyal to the people who gave their lives and their health and their communities over to make sure that the rest of the country was fueled, but we didn't get much back for it. We are loyal to the people who have served this country, and we need to take care of those people back to care. Those are moral intuitions, those are values that we need to live by, and we candidates need to be talking about those values, especially on the left, because I'll tell you, when I started running and people said, you talk about freedom all the time, are you a Republican? That's kind of messed up. That we would think that if somebody talks about freedom, you must be a Republican. We all believe in freedom. How we protect that freedom is, I think, it's more important to protect our health care and our public education and our communities with stable jobs and strong infrastructure. That's freedom. That's what it means to live free in West Virginia. Because if you can't make those choices, if you can't live healthy, you're not free. If you can't choose to live in your community, you're not free. So let me just leave you with this. Two things I saw on Facebook this morning. Well, I saw it because I created one of them. A post I put up this morning. Actually, I'll flip that. I'm going to tell that in a second. First story I'm going to tell you, I was reading a Facebook story of a woman who lives in this district. She lives in Parkersburg. She's an African-American woman, and she was at Walmart last night with some friends. And they were walking through the aisles, and someone came by and said, white power to her. And he was on a scooter, and he drove off, and he was saying other racial epithets as he was leaving. And she, of course, was stunned and angered by that. She didn't say anything because she was too angry to respond in the moment. But what she did do is she talked to the people who she was with, who are not people of color. And they said, I'm so sorry that happened, and they were very sympathetic. But she said, here's what I need you to understand. He votes. That person who just did that will be voting. Are you going to vote? And one of them wasn't even registered to vote, and the other is registered but doesn't ever vote in midterm elections. They're voting now because they heard her loud and clear. That was a really motivating story to me. That this woman, who's very politically active, by the way, was with very close friends who don't vote, or at least weren't necessarily going to vote this time. The other thing I'll tell you is something I put up on Facebook today, which is this morning it struck me. I always wake up with an idea. Not always. I shouldn't say always, but I often wake up with an idea of something I need to say. And this is a nice thing about having a political platform. I can get up and I can say this is what's on my mind. So this morning what was on my mind is that people function when they're feeling anxious, they function in one of three ways. They get angry, they retreat into some sort of comfort, or they do. Right now, we're seeing those who function through anger more than we see any of the other types of people. The anger is getting deeper and more intense. It feels like by the day. But we can't have, that can't be how our country functions. We need those people. We need people who are doers to be the people who solve problems. When you are a doer, you are someone who can actually put your mind to a solution and make it happen. So who are the doers in your community? Who are the people who stay late to clean up? Who are the people who come early and plan ahead? Who are the people who can bring those who disagree to the table, have a conversation, and work toward a solution? Those are the people you need to vote for. Vote for the doers. I'm Kendra Forshea, Democratic nominee for Congress in the West Virginia 1st District. Thank you.
Future Congresswoman, thank you. Thank you for being here. And I appreciate your comments about being on a hill, because as we were setting this up and we were sitting out where you're all sitting, everything looks like it's leaning right. But if you're standing up here, it all looks like it's leaning left, right? So it's all a matter of perspective. That's cute, isn't it? Hey, I just want to point out, you're going to meet Stephen Smith here in a second. I want to point out that Danielle Walker is right here, and she has her cards over there. And Danielle is also running. And someday you're going to be running. So Danielle, thank you for running. We really appreciate it.
John Williams.
Well, who's that? You're running for House of Delegates as well. All right. How often do they have that House of Delegates election? How often? Every 2 years. So look, at 2 years from now, we might have to be back. Vote Common Good might have to come back to West Virginia for the re-election campaign of our House of Delegates and our Congress people. So we just want you to know the Vote Common Good is just getting started. And our little event here is just about to end, but this whole thing is just getting started. So, Stephen, would you come and tell us a bit about what you're doing? He cares about Coalition of Family and Children, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be here this week because there's a lot of pain this week, and I want to talk a little bit about it. I hope you can feel it. I can feel it. This feels like a moment. Every 50 or so years in American history, the pain becomes so great and the inequality becomes so deep that a revolution gets sparked, and it always starts here in West Virginia. So where was the first battle of the Revolutionary War fought? Some people don't know this. Say it louder. West Virginia. What's the only state in the Union that was formed during the Civil War because of the Civil War?
West Virginia.
And where did the greatest, bloodiest labor conflict in American history happen?
West Virginia.
And that happened because 10,000 miners and their families, black, white, immigrant, tied red bandanas around their necks so that people would know who they were, so they would know who each other were, and marched from Kanawha County down to Mingo County, and were met by the coal bosses and their men, and by the federal government dropping bombs. In West Virginia, we know how to turn our pain into power. It's in our blood to fight for people no matter their race or creed or color or who their father was. So if you were to line up all the states, all 50 states in America, what are some of the things that West Virginia is the best at? Or we're not, what's some of the things we're number one at? The opioid crisis, someone said. We have an opioid death rate, an overdose death rate that in some respects is twice as high as anywhere else. Obesity. What else? Smoking. The economy, lack of jobs. Poverty. West Virginia is also number one in the amount of time we spend with our neighbors. We're at the top of lists for military service, for volunteer service. We don't have a lot, but we're in the top 5 in the amount of charity we give. So what does that mean? How could both of those things be true at once? What it means is that we didn't do this to ourselves. But we are the only ones who can change it. We're the only ones who can turn that pain into power. This revolution that we're talking about has already started. The problem is we're just fighting it alone. Every time we're on the phone with a health insurance company for 6 hours to get the care we should have gotten 2 weeks ago, we're fighting alone. Right? Every time we take out a second loan, right? Every time we take on a third job just to make ends meet, just so our kids can have food, we are fighting alone. We don't have to fight alone anymore. Right? The reason we're here in this room, in this space, the reason we're here in this fight is because we don't have to fight alone anymore. So here we are on this sacred ground, in this sacred moment, and I want to talk to you about, excuse me, I want to talk to you about a sacred people, a sacred group of people. They're called West Virginia women. Some of them come here by choice. West Virginia women like Mother Jones, right? Who could cast fear in the eyes of the wealthiest, most powerful men in America, right? Some of them are West Virginian women by birth, like the woman Anna Marie Jarvis who founded Mother's Day right here in West Virginia, right? Or the 17 women who went into Joe Manchin's office earlier this week and said, we're not leaving until you vote no, and we will be heard whether you like it or not. Like the thousands of West Virginia women who led the teachers and school service personnel strike this year that spread across the country. I'm honored to be here today because there is a generation of West Virginia women who are taking over. This group of people knows better than I do or anyone else in the world what it means to turn pain into power. And I'm honored to stand with them. I'm honored to support people like Danielle and Kendra and thousands of others who aren't yet ready to step into the light, but are doing all the work behind the scenes. The time for West Virginia women is right now, and I am proud to be a part of it. I'm done. Who wants to take over from here? If I've got 3 more minutes, I'm ceding them to Danielle Walker.
All right, thanks enough. Another hand for him. All right. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch
Yeah, that was Amazing Grace to the House of the Rising Sun. If you sort of missed it when you're singing yourself, I think I know that song.
Well, friends, we at the Vote Common Good have 5 commitments, and we're going to invite you all to join us in these 5 commitments.
Isn't that awesome? Everybody gets to make their sound, right? Guys on the motorcycle get to make their sound, and we get to make our sound. And sometimes you got to wait for that sound to pass, and then you make yours.
That's right.
Christy and I have been working up. This is our 5th event, and we've only got 26 more around the country. So we're working up. We're practicing this little chant thing we're trying to do at the end with these 5 commitments. So would you be willing to stand up and help us with this? Yeah. We're trying to get this going, and we thought if anybody can help us get this right, it's the good people of Morgantown, West Virginia.
Okay, our 5 commitments. We will vote November 6th.
So we're going to do this little chant afterward, right? So she's going to say all these through so you get them, and then she's going to say them, and then I'm going to lead you in this chant.
We will vote with the poor. We will vote for peace. We will vote to protect the earth. We will vote against special corporate interests.
All right, you ready?
So here we go. We will vote November 6th.
Vote November 6th.
We will vote with the poor.
With the poor.
We will vote for peace.
For peace.
We will vote to protect the earth.
Protect the earth.
We will vote against special corporate interests.
We'll vote against special corporate interests. Because that one's a little complicated, right? So we try to keep that one a little complicated. Some of them come easy. Hey, we're going to be traveling, like I told you. We already started in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We went to Lancaster. We went down there to Asheville and then made it over to Greensboro. We're today at our highlight of the week here in Morgantown, West Virginia. We're going off to Holland, Michigan. Then we're going to go over to Minneapolis, Minnesota. From Minneapolis, we're going to go over to Sioux City, Iowa. Then we're going to go over to Des Moines. Then we're going to shoot over to Omaha. And then we're going to go down to Kansas City. And then we're going to go to Wichita, Kansas. And then we're going to go to Dallas. And then we're going to go to Austin. And then we're going to go to Houston, spend 2 days there. Then we're going to go to San Antonio. Then we're going to go to El Paso. Then we're going to go to Las Cruces. And then we're just going to get started by going to California. And in California, we're going to be in Escondido. We're going to be in Fresno, we're going to be in Simi Valley, we're going to be in Bakersfield. In fact, there's a guy named Devin Nunes who's a representative from Bakersfield. We might take up encampment outside of his house here in Bakersfield. But we are traveling around this country. If you know anyone in any of those places, and you said to yourself, you know, this was a great day, I wish my friend so-and-so had come with me. If you know someone in any of those places, would you let them know we're coming? And more importantly, would you encourage them in their life today? Would you encourage them in their citizenry today? Would you encourage them in whatever it is they have faith in today? Because we all need to be in on this thing together. Now, we're all aware that this wasn't our land. This was land that we took from other people. And now we're on it, and we've got to decide how we're going to live on it and who we're going to allow to live here with us. And we have some real decisions to make. So we can say that this is either our land or this belongs to everybody else, and we're going to let everybody else make the decisions. My friend Tessa's mom told her growing up, honey, when you live in a time of great social turmoil, the thing you do is not nothing. You do something. So we've got our something, and you've got your something, and we're all going to make this land together. So we're going to go on this little version of This Land Is Your Land. You ready to sing it with us? All right, here we go.
Coming out.